Good afternoon, Dr. El Teddy. How are you today, sir? How's it going?
Hello, how art thou?
How art thou indeed? How art thou indeed? Ooh, how's it going? How's your
Pretty,
week been?
pretty good. I cannot complain if I did. Nobody's gonna listen anyway. So
Listen, you better say it again for the people in the back. I say that all the time. I could
ain't
complain,
nobody.
but who would care? Okay. So, my week has been pretty interesting. It's been I was telling you earlier today that so I am the department chair for my department at work. You know that. And I got an email at 11 o'clock last night, a teacher who was resigning effective tomorrow. Which essentially was effective today because we don't have classes tomorrow. We have all day professional development. So basically, they gave us less than a 24-hour notice. And so I spent my morning trying to figure out what we're going to do with his students. Because the classes that he teaches are classes that get tested, and the kids have to be ready for the test. We can't afford to hope that we will get a replacement teacher. And certainly, um, how do I say this delicately? Maybe not necessarily a replacement teacher that can take those classes and have them ready for the test. So yeah, it was an interesting morning. It was an interesting day.
Oh yeah, hey Lock Queen.
What's up, Lock Queen? But it's okay. We're gonna make it happen.
We're gonna make it do
El
with it.
Teddy, you know how it goes. You know how you've been
Oh
a
yeah,
department chair. You know is what it is. You got to roll with the punches. So, but it was just an interesting day. So that's what's going on with me. We're going to jump into this, you guys. We have some good stuff to bring you guys today.
good stuff.
That's not about schools reopening. That is not going to give El Teddy a whole sugar breakdown. I mean, he may have a sugar spike.
I may still have
He
a
may
sugar.
have a sugar spike, but he's not going to have a sugar meltdown.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go into a diabetic coma.
Right. What's up, Abby? Hey.
Hey, what's good, boo?
So if you are listening to us on iTunes or your Google Play on your podcast, just know that you can always join us live over on YouTube. Just go over to your YouTube and subscribe to the Teacher Project 2.0. Make sure you hit the bell so you can get the notifications, and you too can be in the chat. I know when you're listening, you just hear us interacting with the chat, but listen, you can join us over here as well. So make sure you do that, and vice versa. If
And
sometimes
then
you
you can
want to,
see our wonderful faces.
yes, and you can see us. And vice versa, if you are watching us on YouTube and you want to just go ahead and add us to your podcast playlist, go on do that too, honey. Go on do that too. So anyway, that is where we are. That is what we're doing. So we have a couple of really good articles, and as always, the links will be in the description box. Um, we're going to start off with, for the first time in almost 2 years, the Supreme Court is back in session in person. They are no longer doing over the phone cases. Attorneys will be back in the courthouse. I said courthouse. Back in the, I mean, it is the courthouse, but you know what I'm saying. They will be arguing in person. And they've actually, this session, they have taken on some, they have taken on some cases that are going to directly affect education. So what we've decided to do is take this article and we're going to break it down over the next couple of episodes because there are actually 3 court cases that directly affect education. So to this week we'll discuss the first one, and then the next set, and then so forth and so on. The Supreme Court is actually back in session on October the 4th. So next week,
Next week.
Monday. Monday, yeah. All right. So are we ready to get into this?
We are ready. We are ready.
All right. And as always, El Teddy and I have a really good setup, I think. He does a lot of the research. So always a shout out to El Teddy for finding these great articles. A lot of
Somebody
times,
said that I have somebody who watches from the bush, and they say, "Well, you just don't do nothing but sit there and wait for
that's
her
not true. That's not true.
and
Y'all don't
respond."
understand. El Teddy does a lot of the listen. El Teddy does a lot of the research. Now, I'm not saying I never come up with articles,
Right.
but I will say it's about an 80-20 split. If I'm being honest, it's about an 80-20 split. And also, huh?
No, I told him, I said, I really do be
Yeah,
working.
El Teddy be working. And let's not forget that El Teddy was doing the state by state breakdown back at the beginning of this whole Rona situation. Let's not forget that he was starting at the A's and ending at the W's and was giving us the state by state. Okay, sometimes county by county. Nah, Teddy, listen, we got this thing worked out. Y'all just
Right. We know what we work
y'all
well
just enjoy the show. We got this thing worked out.
together. I just, you know what, really be at the quarterback. I'd be the offensive lineman in the
Right.
train. You know what I'm saying? Making sure she can deliver them all. You know what I'm saying? That's what I do.
And also, a lot of times, El Teddy is keeping me on track. He like, all right, we need to do a show. All right, it's time to do a show. So y'all just, we got this worked out.
Be like, hey,
We got this worked out. All right, so let's get into this. This is coming from Education Weekly. Hold on. Wait a minute.
Hey, Travel Love.
Hold on. El Teddy, you might have to read this article. It let me open it up to read it the first time, but it's not letting me open it up. Hold on. Let me try to open it up from the link you sent me. You know how sometimes they want you to subscribe. So hold on. Let me see if I can open it up from the link you sent me. Okay, I got it. No, it did it again. Shoot.
No,
it did it again.
You got to click collapse because I know that little thing comes up.
That's what I'm trying to do. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry, y'all. I literally read this article not 5 minutes ago, but a little bit earlier when El Teddy sent it to me. It's trying to make me subscribe.
Which one is that?
This is the Education Week one. This is the one on the Supreme Court.
Oh, the Supreme Court ones.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I literally just read this like not even 30 minutes ago, but it's trying to make me subscribe. I think it only let me read it for free once. Now it's going to try to make me subscribe. I don't know. And I do not have an account with Education Week. Sorry.
Hold on. I got you. Just a second. Where am I at? Okay, here we are.
The Supreme Court. Right.
So, all right, it says, I'm not going to read the little preface. I'm going to go right down to
the court case.
The case itself. It's a religious school. It's surrounding religious school choice. It says the school choice case from Maine is considered one of the big cases of the term, along with the cases on abortion and gun rights. In Carson, versus Macon, the justices will review the state of Maine's exclusion of schools that provide religious instruction from its program of paying private school tuition for students in communities without high schools. The main case is a follow-up to a Supreme Court's 2020 decision in Espinosa versus Montana Department of Revenue, which held that a Montana state constitutional provision barring aid to religious schools discriminated against those schools and families seeking to benefit from a state tax credit for scholarship donation. Writing for the 5-4 majority, Chief Justice John Roberts said that Montana excluded religious schools based on religious status, and thus he distinguished that the Montana law from state programs that exclude a benefit over the use of government aid for religious education. In a nutshell, let me just break this down, okay? What the case is saying is that Maine has a program where if you live in an area and that area does not have a high school, the state will pay a tuition. That area doesn't have a local public high school. The state will actually pay the tuition for your son or daughter to go to a private school in that area. And that way they don't have to travel, long distances. It was paid for by the state. What Maine was seeking to do was exclude schools that are religious schools. They didn't want to have to pay public funds to send your child to this religious high school. That is it in a nutshell. So really, I will let you go from there.
So what we understand about the Supreme Court is so the court goes, then, the dominoes may fall. And so the important thing to understand in this precedent that it is setting is this could trickle down into other, the fear for opponents of this case is that this could trickle down into other areas where students who attend religious schools may be excluded from other type of scholarship opportunities as it relates to education if they are at a religious school. And so the ramifications can be, like in this one particular instance, it's easy. It may be for some people easy to say, oh, but that makes sense. Separation of church and state. Yeah, we're going to pay for you to go to school, but we're not going to pay for your religious beliefs, right? No, we're not going to pay for you to go to Catholic school, whatever. But where that can extend is now, does it cross over into applying for a scholarship that is being supported by state funding? You know what I mean? It could get very, very murky. And that's one of the concerns that they were saying in the article. What were you going to say?
The hairy or scary part of it is this really, in practice, really only affects 2 states, because
right.
However, you know, people in legal circles
Right.
like precedent, and so now this looks like something like school of choice. You could live in a Texas or Florida and say, which has, you know, things like school of choice or school choice, where if you are in an area where your local high school, you have a local high school, that's not the problem. You feel like it's underperforming. So now you could say, well, I don't want my child to go to that school. This is already happening. I want them to go to this other school, and that's called, you know, school of choice. The problem is, in most cases, a state can't use the public funds to pay for that if it is for a school that is a religious school, because they want that separation. And if this comes down, then people are saying that it could be precedent to now open the floodgates for people to do this in areas where there's not a need. Hey, Cams.
Hey, what's up, Cams?
So you know, the conservatives and the evangelicals are, you know, ready and waiting for,
chomping at the bit for this one.
Chomping at the bit, waiting to see how this goes down. And we know that let's be clear, the Supreme Court is conservative leaning. I could really see
facts.
I could see this really, you know, you know, this could have ramifications, because see, what'll end up happening is there's not limitless funds for education. And so you could see the conservatives and evangelicals sending their students to these schools in droves, many of whom have the resources at home to pay for these particular schools if they want to, but they would much rather keep the money in their own coffers and utilize public funds that could be allocated to help the school that you just said had a problem in that particular area. And that's one of the issues that people had issue with school of choice to begin with, was you are allocating necessary funds that school that you had a problem with need to another school that already probably has the resources and funds being funneled into them, and the rich get richer.
Right. And that was, you know, as someone who I've worked at all of the above. I've worked at a charter school. I've worked at a public school. I haven't worked at a private school, but I went to private school. So, I mean, I know that's not the same thing, but and this is whenever I speak negatively against charter schools, that is always one of my biggest arguments is, you know, they sold you the dream of what a charter school is, and they really made people feel like a charter school was just a private school with no tuition. Well, you know, it goes back to that saying, there's no free lunch. There is no such thing as a free charter school. I mean, a free private school. Those funds are still coming from somewhere. They're being supported. And like you just said, a lot of times they're being allocated away from the schools that need it the most into a situation that, in my, you know, again, my experience here in DC, at one point in time, it was just free for all for charter schools here. I mean, anybody and their cousin could open up a charter school, and they were. And so when you think of all the money that was wasted for everybody and their cousin to decide that they wanted to run their own school, and usually those schools were closed within 5 to 10 years, if it took that long, you think of all of the money and the resources that was wasted that they could have output into the neighborhoods where those same neighborhoods that those charter schools opened up needed those resources and that money, and they could have put that extra staff. You know what I mean? And so that's like you said, it's a slippery slope, but it's not. We're not being ridiculous to say it could absolutely extend into that, because again, when you start talking about the conservatives and the evangelicals, like all of this could really get very, very convoluted. And once the Supreme Court says it, it is very hard to unring the bell. I'm not saying impossible, hard. We're not going down there. That's why I said I'm not saying impossible, because we're not going down that road. That's a different show. That's the politics of it all. That's a different show. But we know
Right.
it can happen.
No, and I hear you.
But I'm saying it's just hard. Yeah.
Now I did want to read what ended up happening in the interim in this process. The one paragraph that says the U.S. Court of Appeals for the First Circuit in Boston upheld the Maine program last year, ruling that its distinctive character and limited scope, and the fact that its exclusion of certain schools was based on would-be religious use of state funds distinguished the case from Espinosa. And when they were referencing this Espinosa case, in that case with the Espinosa, what the problem with that was, it wasn't the same as saying we're allocating state or public funds to a religious entity. It was something, it was the opposite. And that's where the distinction comes from. So because the school was not totally a religious school, even though they were had some courses or some classes or some things in there that was of a religious notion or whatnot. So I'm really interested to see how this is going to play out, because this could be decisions that could go. And there are people, even Black people, that may be wanting this. There are evangelicals, even within, the Black community and so forth, that are, staunch conservatives religiously, I should say, and where they want to send their child to that type of school where they are teaching them things from a more theological perspective, and so forth, where these schools don't teach evolution or Darwinism. They teach that the world is 6,000 years old, and things like that. And so they teach abstinent. And you cannot even you can't even introduce the notion of sex education as you know it in a public school arena. So I'm interested to see how this goes, because we have some evangelicals within the Black community as well that may be in line with this and may want this to happen.
May very well be. Cams, baby, you know what? I might do a whole separate video on that, because that really would take an hour or more. Like,
started. You talking about
honestly, I think I might do one on that. I think I may do a whole, and it's a whole separate. It might be a story time. My experience as an educator in DC during the Michelle Reed era.
Listen, y'all want to talk about a sugar spike? Please get her started on that, young lady. And really, we will have a sugar spike of all sugar spike. Listen, you talk about
you get me started on Michelle Reed, baby. To make a long story short, Cams, my thoughts on Michelle Reed is that she's a pseudo-ass educator that had the whole country fooled on both sides of the spectrum, on the Democratic side and the Republican side. She sold everybody a dream that was built on a pile of fucking rubbish, okay? It was a house of cards that was bound to fall. Michelle Reed is a fake, she's almost like what's the word I'm looking for? An illusionist. Because she really made you think you saw something that you did not see. She played with test scores. She manipulated data. You know, listen. It's a whole lot to that one, Cam. Woo, baby. And at the end of the day, the people that got hurt the most, or the people that she called herself trying to help, which were the kids of DC. Like, so that's the short version.
Is it safe to come out yet?
You can come back. I'm done. I said that's the short version.
Okay. I'm just
that bad. What I said wasn't that bad.
I told y'all, and she was worried about my sugar levels. I told y'all she's the one with the sugar spikes today. It's her. It's her.
Yes, honey. She Harry Houdini the people. Yes, she did. Yes, she did. What are you gonna believe? Me or your lying eyes? That's basically it. Travel Love said, now that was a read. I really don't feel like I read her. Did I read her? She's one of the few people that if I saw on the street, it could be a problem. Like I'm still angry.
You are.
I am. Oh, I admit I'm angry. Mm-hmm. I'm still angry. But anyway, moving on. Let her stay under the rock.
Her sugar spike. I might have a sugar spike. No, it's not. I'm not going to sugar spike on this. It'll be like last article that gets my whole sugar level spiking.
Okay, so the next. Okay, I'll take back over my job. I should be able to open up this article. Well, maybe not because this one's week 2. Hell, I don't think I can. No, go ahead. This one is. I might have to actually get it to quarantine or not to quarantine. That's the one.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
To quarantine or not, Florida is letting parents decide. Children can now be sent back to school without quarantining, even if they've been exposed to the coronavirus, as long as they have no symptoms. The decision will be up to parents, not school districts, under an emergency rule signed Wednesday by Florida's new Surgeon Generals. Bookmark, if you remember my last politics of it all, I had a whole breakdown of that young man and his history, the new Florida Surgeon General. Anyway, the new rule is likely to intensify the debate over parents' right versus the need for public health precautions in schools. It elated parents who think their children have been sent home unnecessarily, but it may panic parents who are afraid students will spread COVID-19 just because they do not show symptoms. Previously, state rules required students to quarantine off campus at least 4 days after exposure to someone with the virus. Some parents had complained that children were missing weeks of school, exacerbating a loss in academic performance that has been dubbed the quote COVID slide, end quote. The new rule was issued in light of a necessary exclusion of healthy students from in-person learning and the urgent need to provide updated COVID-19 guidance to school districts, read the order signed by Dr. Joseph Ladapo, hired Tuesday by Governor Ron DeSantis. And this is Tuesday of last week. Ladapo is known for essays questioning the safety of COVID-19 vaccines and the effectiveness of masks. He has supported public health policies that call for herd immunity through natural infection. Some parents and school officials worry his new rule on student quarantines could lead to increased infections among school-aged children, already one of the fastest growing age groups for COVID-19 cases. And it goes on and on to give opinions. That's the long and short of it. I do want to read this small bit about some numbers, okay? Palm Beach County schools were averaging about 4,000 quarantines a day a few weeks ago. The large number convinced the school district to mandate that all students wear masks, defying the state's health department and DeSantis, who said they must be optional. All other large districts in Florida have imposed similar rules, including Broward and Miami-Dade. The state's ban on mask mandates remains in effect under the new state order. Palm Beach County had 1,524 students, and Broward had 1,526 students in quarantine Tuesday. Broward, I'm sorry, Miami-Dade reported 3,332 students quarantined as of Friday, the most recent count. So those are just some numbers. And the last thing I want to read is the old rule, at least the old rule required at least 4-day quarantine followed by a negative COVID-19 test or a 7-day quarantine without a test before a child without symptoms could return. This is as opposed to last school year where a child had to quarantine for 2 weeks. So really be.
This is going to pain me to say what I'm getting ready to say. Based on my own experience thus far this school year, Florida is just being honest enough to say that's what they're doing. Because let's be clear, that's what's already happening. Parents are deciding whether they are going to send their kids to school. There's nobody at the door stopping anyone. The lists are not up to date. I will speak for my own experience in the area in where I live. We were told that if there was if a student was exposed and they were supposed to be in quarantine, if they were vaccinated and they did not have any symptoms, they were allowed to come to school. But here's the caveat. We can't ask them if they're vaccinated. We only have to go by the parents' word of mouth or the students' word of mouth to say, yeah, I'm vaccinated. Because of HIPAA, we cannot require them to show us proof as of right now. Now, I feel like that's something that will probably change. But as of right now, we cannot ask for proof that they're vaccinated. So essentially, that's what's already happening. Florida is just being honest enough to say that's what we're doing.
Hello to everybody just coming in. I know some of y'all say
hello everybody coming in. Hey, Miss T Velocity. Hey, Karen Alexander. Hey, Quintessential. I'm always be retweeting us and sending us out. Appreciate you all for being here. But yeah, I mean, I hate to say it that way, but honestly, this is the world that I'm living in right now. Hey, Jason, this is really just the world that I'm living in right now. Like, I legit, listen. The letter goes out. They let us know if you were directly affected, you will get further information. If you don't hear from us, assume that it was none of your students.
Let me say this. I mean, first of all, let's be clear. Ron DeSantis put that young man in place for a reason. Because he had went and scoured the medical profession for someone loony enough to do his bidding.
Fact.
For someone loony enough to do his bidding. And you see, it wasn't even a week that young man was in office before he issued that, which goes counter to all of the local departments of health, the county departments of health across Florida, from coast to coast, across 2 time zones, are not in line and in lockstep with this. This is counter to all of this. Mind you, you got 2 things going on in the school system in terms of the COVID-19 fight. You got a good portion of the student population that don't even have the option to be vaccinated. That's not even an option, okay? You got the other portion who it is an option, and some of the students may very well want to get vaccinated, but their parents are turning their own children into political pawns, toying with their children's lives. And that is dangerous. The other part of this thing, and we're going to get into this a little bit in the next article, is between COVID-19 and between the CRT debate, we are now allowing people who are not educational professionals to dictate what education should be. It will be like, I'm sorry?
We've been doing that.
Oh yeah, no. I'm serious. No, but now it's having real tangible impacts that is going to start sweeping states and things like that. Just to give you real tangible, it would be like saying, I'm just gonna let my Yahoo neighbor across the hall decide what the medical field determines they should focus on, or how they should diagnose you and treat you at the hospital. That's how, and I know that sounds insane, but that's literally what we have going on, because you got people who have no idea what education is, have no idea what the word pedagogy means, have no earthly
I mean,
idea.
Michelle Reed was only a teacher for 2 years before somebody decided her ass was an expert. I'm sorry. Did I go
Well,
back down that road?
Department of Education secretary for the entire nation was only in the classroom for what, 2 or 3 years himself, and now
Facts.
he's allegedly the aficionado on all things classroom teaching.
Facts.
And so what's going to end up happening is, I'm going to say this, y'all got to work, you got to work out your own soul salvation with regard to you and your children. You got to be vigilant about the health and safety and well-being of your kids, because the school is not going to do it. The school board is not going to do it. The Department of Education is not going to do it. And your state is not going to do it. So when you let your child leave and go on to this school, you got to work out your own soul salvation. If that means that you got to have an extra mask for your son and daughter, that means that if they need to be vaccinated, they're gonna have to be vaccinated. If that means that you go listen, because it's not gonna happen. And when you have to pay these, because medical bills are not going anywhere, they're not relieving you of medical bills because you got the cocoa. That same fee that they're going to charge you for this emergency room or urgent care visit or this hospital bed that you need is going to stay the same. And you are going to incur all types of medical bills that aren't going anywhere because now your child got to be laid up for the cocoa. Just saying.
And like I said before, I understand the frustration of the constant revolving door of quarantine. But like I said to y'all last week when I went on my whole little rant at the beginning of the episode, you can't have it both ways. You wouldn't listen to the education experts who said, we are not ready to go back to work. We are not ready for these schools to open back up. We do not have the bandwidth to make sure that everyone is safe. We just don't, we're not ready. But y'all wanted to open back school. Y'all wanted to open schools back up because y'all were ready for y'all kids to get out y'all house and y'all had to go back to work and all those other excuses that y'all gave us. Some of them were legit, but most of them were some bull. So you can't have it both ways, because what we're saying is, okay, fine, we'll open schools back up. But the way that we do it that is the most safe for everyone is that when your child has been exposed or your child, God forbid, is positive, they can't come to school. And if for whatever reason your child was sitting next to that child, they can't come to school either. And y'all can't have it both ways. You can't be mad that they're trying to be safe for everybody but want schools open, because the safest thing would have been for us to be remote. That would have been the safest option until, especially with that new surge, that with the Delta variant and everything else, the safest thing would have been for everybody to stay their asses home. But that ain't what y'all wanted. So now you're complaining, oh, well, the quarantine is too long. Well, how about death? Is death too long?
I mean, it's a shame that we have to put it that bluntly, but and you know, I saw something similar to this in Miami-Dade County, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, when they got rid of outdoor suspension. And there was no longer outdoor suspension because parents complained, well, I don't care that my child fought and drug 4 or 5 people and had that child hospitalized. They don't need to be home. And we were forced to no longer have outdoor suspension anymore. And they just had them still in the building, but in a holding cell room. That's where it was crazy. Suspension for everybody because the parents complained. And now those same students still have access to those same kids because they got to get out of school. at the same time, and now on the way to the bus or on the way home, you still got knockdown, drag outs, and people being hospitalized. And so the same thing is happening with regard to now COVID-19 and things like that, where because a parent, and I hate to put it this way, and it's gonna sound harsh, but I'm gonna say it because some parents are lazy. I'm just gonna say some are very lazy and want the school system to do their job of parenting. They want no parts of you having a child at home at all. So now the school and everybody else's kids got to suffer and perhaps get contaminated with coronavirus and perhaps maybe be hospitalized and lose their lives because y'all around here with the foolishness. I'm just saying, because they're gonna take it upon themselves to decide what's medically best for everybody.
Yeah.
Have y'all seen some of these parents?
And like you said, I don't know with what degree that I don't know with what expertise they feel. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's that. And again, you know, I don't be defending Florida, and I'm not really not defending Florida now, but what I'm going to say is we're not going to pretend like Florida is they're not the only ones. I promise you, I would be willing to bet the majority of the school systems are fighting the same battle because again, I can only speak for, again, my experience, but I know that since school has started, we have had well over 6 cases in my building. And they can't keep up with a list to let the teachers know, well, this is a quarantine and that's quarantine. Well, that child went out on quarantine on Monday. They still got 7 days left. They can't keep up with it. So are we really getting the most effective, the most up to date? No, we're not.
The other part about it is, remember, it has an incubation period. And just because that child is asymptomatic, it could be in its incubation period.
Well, that's why for us, it's supposed to be mandatory 5 days. That's what it's supposed to be.
Right. That was
mandatory 5 days.
That was the whole purpose.
That's what it was supposed to be now.
So please prepare. You just send your child to school in a hazmat suit.
Or but then they're going maybe find out if there are any options.
Here's the ironic part. You see your child in protective covering, they might be sent home faster because they might be out of uniform or something like that. Right. Don't say, oh, your child ain't got on the right uniform, send them home. Now they can go over a uniform because they try to stay protected. A mess. A mess.
A mess.
Got going on.
Anyway, so that's what that is. It's just anyway, I'm trying not to go down the rabbit hole because Jesus. Because I can't tell y'all but so much going on because God forbid, you know, the wrong people hear me talking. But it's just it's a lot. The CPS numbers are rising. Oh, in Chicago public schools, and no plan is in place. There is a plan in place. And let me put a caveat into something. I told y'all at the beginning of the year that I didn't think it was going to last. I was like, oh, we'll be back home because the cases, No, they are going to hold on to this as if their life depended on it. They are not trying to close schools down in any way, shape, or form. They are going to ride this pony until all the kids are just in quarantine.
And it really be, you don't see the Biden administration or the Dems really giving any pushback.
Not at all.
None at all.
But let's be clear. Let me say this. I'm going to say this. They always wanted schools to open. Now, that's one thing. Even when he was running, he never lied about that. He said he wanted schools back. And to get back sooner rather than later. Again, the part that everybody is conveniently looking over are the numbers. They're conveniently looking over the numbers. But, you know, like I said, I told y'all from the beginning, and I will continue to say, if you have children, you have to do what's in the best interest of your child. Figure out what it is you have to do to make sure you're not, ain't nobody gonna be knocking at your door about truancy, but you got to do the best thing that's in your best interest. But they're still playing sports. Some games have been canceled this week in Pittsburgh. Oh, they still playing sports here too. And like our high school football game got canceled last week because the other team had a breakout. The other team had a break. And here's the scary part about that. They didn't cancel the game until like 2:00. Like all day long, we thought the game was going on. We didn't get the call until like 2:00. So let's say that they played the game and found out the next day.
But my thing about it is, if you look at some of the sporting game, high school, all the way up to professional, they're not limiting the amount of people that can come into that game. I'm not going to speak for all, but most places are not social distancing. So you telling me that the team got it? I mean, you could have a whole super spreader going on in the stands.
Well, right. Even here, at the football stadium here, the Washington football team, the policy is when you're inside of the arena, like if you're at the concession stand or going to the bathroom, you have to have your mask on. But when you go outside, you can take your mask off. And they're not limiting the amount of tickets that they're selling. So if it's sold out, oh well, it's just let's be clear, they're gonna never be sold out. But if it's sold out, oh well, it's just sold out.
Deal with it.
Child, anyway, so yeah, I agree, Quintessential. Like I said, I was saying that earlier today. I said, they gonna just
they gonna ride this one to the
wheels. They're gonna ride this one to the wheels fall off.
Yeah. Parents, you need to work out your own soul salvation. And I know some students I've seen there's clamoring that there are students whose parents are the anti-vaxxers, the anti-maskers, and those students themselves say, yeah, I'm not gonna let you put my whole life in your hands because you mom, you dad are on some. And I've talked to several students whose parents were on, several teachers who told me their students said the parents was on one page and their kids was on a whole different play because their kids were like, their students were like, listen, I'm not playing this game with you. I know my mom and dad is on this other crazy loony bin stuff. I'm not playing with my life with these people. I'll be having on my mask and having my sanitizer because I'm not playing with y'all. So you gotta work out your own soul salvation.
Yep. Getting back to normal has always been about money. Exactly. And like I told you guys, I said, if anybody ever doubted that we don't value education in this country, just look at what's been happening over the last 2 years. It has never been about what's in the best interest of kids. It's always been about what is the most convenient for adults. So the next time somebody try to tell you, oh, we care about, no, we don't. No, we don't. Because if you cared about education, then you would care about the kids going back, being safe in the best environment. And you don't. You care about what's convenient for the adults. So, you want to go ahead and read the last article?
No. I need you to read this, because I know this article is going to sit me. You had your read moment. This is because it gives you a little bit of the background of and I hate to put it this, but fuckery in Florida.
Oh,
over the last 20 plus years.
So this article is coming from newrepublic.com. It is called The Soapbox. The title of this article is Republicans Don't Want to Reform Public Education. They want to end it. And this was written September the 30th. So this is today. This May, in a speech at Michigan's deeply conservative Hillsdale College, Florida Education Commissioner Richard Cochran sketched out a few principles for Republicans to follow. Conservatives, he said, should no longer consider the primary purpose of education to be training students for employment. Instead, they should see it as installing moral values. That is scary already. When it comes to America's bittersweet ideological fights, the war will be won in education. Wow. And finally, while Republican education policies had played a vital role in advancing school choice, the next step was to get so many families to flee public education that no future administration would be able to undo the damage. Wow. On one hand, the speech was red meat for a red meat crowd. A politician who made his name attacking teacher unions, speaking at school partly funded by former education secretary and public education foe Betsy DeVos. But Cochran's remarks are also something of a key to making sense of Florida's tumultuous start to the school year and what it means for the fate of public education on the rest of the country. I'm gonna skip that because they're talking about how bad COVID was in Florida. We got it. They talked about the court battle. We covered that already. The Department of Education made good on its threat to withhold the salaries of defiant school board members and opened up a voucher program for bullied students to students who felt their children were being harassed by mask requirements. Republican State Representative Randy Fine, who controls Florida's K-12 funding, vowed, "If my school district requires masks, I will make sure they get hurt next year." Democrats responded with an outcry. Conservatives were fulfilling their long quest to defund public education and redirect taxpayer money to private schools. Republicans said that they were merely defending parents' rights. After all, DeSantis's executive order ensuring parents' freedom to choose was based on Florida's new Parents' Bill of Rights that was passed this spring to enshrine parents' rights to direct their children's health care, education, and moral upbringing. Yada, 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 yada.
Can you read the paragraph that says, it's maybe about halfway down. It says, but while in some regards DeSantis followed Bush's footsteps.
Hold on, okay, I got it. Okay. But while in some regards, and remember the link is in the description. So if y'all want to go back and read the
let me pause really before.
Okay, go ahead, pause.
If y'all don't do nothing, you need to take a good 10 or 15 minutes of your time and read the fullness, because there's so much. We could really take paragraph by paragraph and have a whole show, because there are so many important things going on in this article by itself. And I just say, if you have kids, grandkids, or anything, and far with education, this is a very important article, because I'm telling you this stuff is happening in real time. Go ahead, Really B. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. All right. But while in some regards DeSantis followed Bush's footsteps, he also distinguished himself by importing national Trumpian fights into Florida education system. In March, he unveiled a $160 million civics education initiative developed uncoincidentally under the advisement of Hillsdale College, which directs a line of charter schools, including one run by the education commissioner's wife, that emphasizes the influence of the 10 Commandments. I'm sorry. Who calls protesting irresponsible citizenship and bans Marxist critical race theory. In June, the State Board of Education prohibited any instruction that defines American history as something other than the creation of a new nation based largely on universal principles stated in the Declaration of Independence. The same month, DeSantis signed a bill requiring Florida's public universities to survey faculty and staff about their political beliefs in the claimed interest of ensuring that students aren't indoctrinated on campus. The bill was accompanied by vague threats from DeSantis to defund the schools that demonstrate insufficient intellectual diversity.
Oh yeah, and the last thing I want you to read is that next paragraph, because there's so many bullet points. These two paragraphs right here are so important. So you see what he's doing in colleges and universities, and then we have an attack on school boards. Read this next part.
DeSantis has calculated rightly that injecting partisan politics into local decisions about education could serve right-wing priorities. This summer, he vowed to get the Florida political apparatus involved in school board elections, nonpartisan by law since 1998. So we can make sure there's not a single school board Republican who ever indulges in critical race theory. Soon after, 2 Republican state legislatures pre-filed a bill calling for a 2022 ballot initiative that would amend Florida's constitution in order to require school board candidates to run under party affiliations. One of the authors, State Representative Spencer Roach, cast the bill as a transparency measure. Parents are outraged by the radicalism of the entrenched educational establishment, Roach warned, and school board members across the country will see a reckoning of historic proportions at the ballot box in 2022. Um, and I'm just skipping that next one. And the destabilization, it's hard to ignore. Behind the rabbit holes, the government wants everyone to chase down. Spar said, is the reality of Florida's public schools open this August with some 9,000 vaccine vacancies. God damn, I'm sorry, y'all. Vacancies among teachers and support staff as veteran educators leave in frustration and too few replacements apply. In the privatized alternatives, Republicans have pushed critics say that the rapid expansion of vouchers usage in which of Florida has tripled over the last decade has led to a proliferation of low-quality voucher schools. That happened here in D.C. Of that vouchers mostly cover tuition, but so poorly regulated that as of 2017, the Orlando Sentinel investigation found some schools hold classes in aging strip malls, falsify safety and health records, and employ teachers without college degrees. Florida has also long exempted private schools from the high-stakes year-end testing that used as a crutch against their political counterparts. And we talked about last week what they're doing with the testing down there. I'm gonna skip. Read something. I'm gonna skip down again.
Yeah, because it's a long. I will say it is a long article, but there is so packed with so much stuff. Yeah, I'm sorry I cut you off. Or did you want to just stop?
No, I'm just trying to, because I mean, like you said, it is long, but I want to make sure we get the meat and potato. You want to stop there and then we can read a little bit more?
Yeah, we can read. Let me say this. As much as Florida is looked at as the laughing stock of the country, people always say Florida is horrible. Florida has always been at the front end of education. Florida does stuff, and this goes all the way back to the Bushes. High stakes testing started, that path. It didn't start it. The charter schools didn't start in Florida, but the explosion of it started there. Florida was the first big state that went Common Core, and all the other big states decided. Mm-hmm. And then Florida was the first big state to say we don't want Common Core anymore, and all the big states. So Florida has always been. When I have I have certification in 4 states. Please be clear, every other state outside of Florida that I've gone to have said immediately, Florida's education, if you have certification in Florida, you can go anywhere in America and they will not give you any question, because that's how much they are, at the forefront of education. However, this is going to be a blueprint. Some of the scariest things we already see what they're trying to do to critical race theory. They are very serious about this not being about teaching your students and educating students anymore. They are very serious about this being the place to teach them moral upbringing and stuff like that. They are very serious about that. So education, like we said at the beginning, as we know it, is going to change. When you start going to college campuses and saying you're polling the faculty for their political beliefs.
Right. I was like, that's ridiculous.
And then saying and threatening to fire people. And we talked about this really be a few shows ago, that when we talked about critical race theory, that it would start to go into colleges, because remember, state schools are funded by state departments of education. And we knew this was coming. Florida has been a state where, and in a lot of states, if you are running for the school board, you cannot run in a political party. It's non-party affiliated, because it's supposed to be education. It's supposed to be nonpartisan. And they don't say, screw that. Nope, we need to know who's the Republicans, who's the Democrat, and who is what. Because we don't want not one Republican being for critical race theory. And so now they're going to force everybody running because they're going to, take their part out of the Florida Constitution and make everybody running on the school board run under the political party. So that way they can say, oh, y'all been voting for so-and-so all this time. They've been secretly a Democrat or they've been secretly a Republican. And they can't not do this or they've been. This is an entire shit show that's about to go down. And and listen, DeSantis knows Florida has been at the forefront, so he knows if he can get this going, the momentum was there. We see what's going to happen. North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, all those Bible Belt states, please understand, they are setting precedent. And there are several blue states that will follow the precedent as well. Several blue states. This is getting real scary. It's getting real scary. And like they said, did you hear that part they said about when you're teaching about the history that you're not allowed, this is by law, to teach anything that doesn't go in line with every single word of the
Declaration of Independence. Which, let's be clear, like if we're gonna do that, I mean, the Constitution talked about slavery, so like I was 3/5 of a person under the Constitution. So good point, Cams. Is it a shit show or is it a blueprint?
It is a blueprint. I mean, they're not hiding their hands anymore.
Not at all. Well, I don't think they ever really were. I just think people weren't paying attention. I think for the people who were paying attention, we saw the writing on the wall.
What they're going to do is, and see, here's the other part. They're putting this stuff in place in the public schools, but not in the private schools where all of their kids attend. The mask mandates, the private schools can have. The private schools can teach whatever ideology that they want. But a public school, oh no, we're going to dictate to all of you people that are poorer than us or can't afford it, or you people of color, or all of you lesser thans, what you can learn, whereas our kids will be able to do whatever they want. This, you want to, and they say they're scared of indoctrination. Oh no, that's what they're about to start doing.
I'm about to say that's what they're actually doing. Like, what are you afraid? How are you gonna be afraid of what you're doing? Like, that is what you're doing. Like,
and then here's the thing. What's so funny and ironic? Here's irony. The irony is these same people will fight you tooth and nail about the defunding of police programs and police forces around the country that are known to kill members of our societies, but they will quickly defund a school system and a school district that is supposed to empower and educate and enlighten the future of America. They will defund them if they don't fall
in a minute.
But don't defund the people who are out there killing people and who are out there doing the devil's work out there. Oh no. We are turning this country into a police state. If it's not already.
Going back to the first paragraph of that article, it goes directly back to what I just said a minute ago about let's stop pretending that public education in this country is about educating children, and let's look at what it really is about. And when they were talking about teaching morals and values, let me say this, I can make an argument that should be a part of what kids learn in school. But for you to say that public education isn't about making sure our kids get the basic knowledge, but it should be about morals and values. No, ma'am. No. That's your parents' job. The school should be I'm not saying that it can't be a place at school, but that should not be a primary goal of the schools. Like, hello? Like, no. It's a mess. It's a really good article, you guys. It goes on to talk more about I'm gonna read a little bit of this right here where it talks about the Democratic piece of this a little bit. But for Democrats, there may be an opportunity in such blatant aggression, a chance to remember that the public likes public education. As Berkshire recently reported, support for charter schools has declined and school choice rhetoric has become toxic. Conservatives launched a national, it's become so toxic that conservatives launched a national rebranding effort. Townsend found no local school tax referendum to increase public school funding has failed in nearly a decade, and even in the state's reddest districts. To Townsend, this trend suggests that public education is the sleeping dragon of our politics. In the short term, Republicans can get some political capital from making a ruckus about critical race theory and mask, but in the long term, Americans do not want to fundamentally undermine the institution that is entirely possible they will push back when they see it threatened. A party that campaigns against the Florida model, Towson wagers could forever change American education once again. And that goes back to what El Teddy just said about how a lot of things do sort of start in Florida.
And the thing about it is, do the people in positions of power have the backbone and intestinal fortitude to get in front of this and to speak out about it? Because let them tell it, they can't walk and chew gum at the same time. What's the purpose of having all of these legislative committees in both the House and in the Senate if they are not bringing these issues up for discussion? If they're not bringing people responsible for these things to Capitol Hill in order to really parse this out and have the discussion so that we can do multiple things at one time, what are you all doing? What are you all doing?
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly, Cam, your point is valid, and that's exactly why I said that it's not the school's job to enforce morals, because for one, morals are relative to who you are. My morals may not be the same as El Teddy's morals, and so for you to say that that's the school's job is making an assumption that all of us feel the same way about certain things, and that all of our moral compass is at the same place, which of course goes back to the whole thing about religion in schools, yada yada yada. But so that's one of the reasons why it should not be my primary job, because my morals may not be what your morals are and what you're teaching your child at home. It's also a slippery slope because, like you said, you are now indoctrinating children on what we perceive is the morality that should be for everybody. No, stick to teaching the education. If we, you could take when I was in high school, I mean, of course, I went to a Catholic school, but we took a class called morality. But it was based on a religious doctrine because we were in a religious school. And so, of course, it went back to, the whole idea of, is it wrong to steal a loaf of bread even if your family is starving? Like, it was things like that. It was those types of conversations. And so the reality is, again, I was in a religious school where there was a certain expectation of what the moral high ground is, right?
I'm gonna go back to the one part that was scariest to me, and really you may or may not agree with me. To me, post-secondary institutions are the last beacon of hope, where you expect that if you missed it in high school, if for some reason you went to when you decide that you're gonna put down money and you're going to pay to go to school, you expect that you get real school, real education, and not some, you know what I'm saying, some false, realization of what education is. Okay? I don't want to go to a 5-star restaurant where it's supposed to have barbecue and you giving me tofu. And my point is, when you start saying we are going to look at the political beliefs of professors and are going to start to weed them out and fire them based on their beliefs and ideologies, now you're limiting education, because education is about choices. Sure, you may be somebody who may be the racist person in the world. You might want to take a professor that it falls in line with white supremacy and stuff like that. But I may want to take a course that tells me all about You know what I'm saying? My whole mentality and stuff
Right.
like
And again, that goes back to what your moral compass is. Like your moral compass might tell you it's all right for me to steal that loaf of bread if it means that I don't starve tonight. My
that.
moral compass might say, hey, you need to go beg that store owner to let you get this loaf of bread and you bring them the money when you get paid because stealing is stealing and it don't matter. I mean, that's a small example, but it's just that argument. And me and you could debate it all night if we wanted to, because it's how you really truly feel versus how I really truly feel. And it even goes back to the political ideology. So now we're teaching morality. My political ideology may be imperfect, it may be in total lockstep against your political ideology, even religion. My one of my closest colleagues in the building, he's a practicing Muslim. He doesn't eat pork. He's very devout. He does his, he prays, he does Ramadan. He does, so he's not just, oh, I'm Muslim. No, he's very much following the tenets. So he could be teaching his kids all the reasons why you shouldn't eat pork. And yet they come from a home where, they got pig on the table every morning at breakfast. So again, no, it's not our job to teach the morality because everybody's morality isn't the same.
Hey, surprise around the corner. I ain't seen you in a minute,
I
bro.
know where you been.
Been hiding away from us. Been hiding.
Right, Mercury said right, because I probably steal it. Exactly.
And let's be clear. I'm gonna tell you what conservatives are trying to do. Conservatives have said, "Yeah, we're losing the race politically with some of these adults. Let's start a little earlier. Let's start the indoctrination early in the school system. We may lose the battle right now, but it's coming along if we start to indoctrinate these young people earlier. I'm just saying, it's scary out there. I know we went long today. We had some real serious topics today, y'all. I know we went long and we went over an hour, I think, but that last
But it's all good. And we can, again, y'all know how we do. We find articles and somehow we make sure we talk about what we need to talk about. We're gonna definitely continue the legal cases that are before the Supreme Court this session. And we can definitely come back to this conversation because just like if I have to pat ourselves on the back for a few seconds, we usually are the trendsetters. A lot of stuff we say, and then next thing you know, 2 or 3 weeks later, it's all the buzz. We see the trends coming. So this article, I don't think will be the last time we'll be discussing some of
now,
these issues.
some of you all is about to be October, so you're coming into the political season within your respective areas.
Right.
For you all to come back and let us know if you're starting to see people running for school boards under political parties, whereas that was not the case before, because it could already be started or have already started in your area. So yeah,
it is what it is. But as always, we want to thank you guys for being here. I saw a couple of new faces in the room. If you are new,
I appreciate that.
yeah, if you are new, please make sure you have hit the subscribe button and go on and give us a thumbs up. It is free 99. And make sure you hit the little bell because unfortunately, because of my schedule and El Teddy's schedule, we can't set a regular, we'll be here every week at this day and at this time. But if you got your notifications on, you will know when we are here. And as always, please feel free to send us articles. The email account is the teacherproject 2.0 at gmail.com. Please feel free to send us any questions or articles that you guys want us to discuss. And thank you guys for being here. El Teddy, you get the last word.
Like I said, we always say be vigilant about this thing called education. And I know sometimes it seems real political, but if you don't understand that, politics infuses itself into almost every facet of your life, even down to what you eat, you're fooling yourselves. So please be vigilant about the education of yourselves as well as your loved ones, be it your children, family members, friends, relatives, and so forth. I just want to thank my partner for being here. I don't think she gets enough kudos. Thank her because she, She does a lot of the hosting stuff, and she always, reads the articles. And I want to thank her for doing all of that stuff. I want to give her
Oh,
I love her. Even when we fight, y'all, we will come and call each other afterward and be like, you know what, you ain't shit, but I still love you.
it's usually him fighting with me. I don't fight with
No,
him.
she fights with me. She be trying to kick
I
me off.
do not.
Me off.
It's never me.
It's always her. Y'all see her click me off the lives and stuff like that. Y'all see, she be clicking me off.
Never over here. I've never done it over here.
Not over here.
All right.
But on her channel.
Well, that's another conversation.
Y'all go subscribe to Really B's channel over on YouTube if you're not already subscribed to her. She's a wonderful YouTuber and you'd love her channel. Anyway.
You are subscribed to El Teddy as well. We can ready to get out of here. Love you guys. Always bringing light to education policy and your challenges being educated. Thank you, Cams. We're going to leave it there because that's a great way to end it. Thank you for the compliment and the love. You always are here with us, Cams, and hanging in there. And we will see y'all at the next appointed time and at the next appointed place. Peace.
All right, y'all. Peace.